Today we are making a chicken Alfredo and rice casserole. This is a pretty simple recipe, but I'm making some modifications because you guys know we like to home make as much as possible, but I'm gonna tell you how you can make it even easier. So if you don't wanna home make all these different ingredients, that's completely fine. I have some cooked white rice here. I cooked this actually yesterday and just put it in the refrigerator. I had some time, so I figured I would just get that started. It looks brown because we cook ours in bone broth. It is white, just long grain white rice, but you can use whichever kind you want. You just want 2.5 cups of cooked rice. So this is cooked. We're just gonna put it over here into this mixing bowl. And then my kids love rice, you guys. So they're gonna be so excited that there's leftover rice that they can just have for lunch today. Also, I wanted to mention, it is currently 10:15 in the morning. I am making this now and I'm just gonna prep it and then cover it and pop this casserole into the fridge because we're actually, well, weather permitting, we're supposed to be going to swim with some friends this afternoon. So once I get home from that, I can just throw the casserole in the oven and I'm not gonna have to worry about anything. Now, this is one of the ways that you can make this a little bit easier. I've made my own Alfredo sauce. Now, it's very easy to make. It is just a few very simple ingredients. So feel free to make your own. But if you wanna make this even easier and you really just want this to be more of a dump everything into the casserole dish and go type of thing, then buy just a jar of Alfredo sauce. You don't have to make it, but if you're interested in making your own for about the next 30 seconds, I'll show you how to make it. It's so simple. All you have to do is start with a saucepan on your stovetop. Add in a full stick of butter. Now, I know this seems like a lot of butter. Alfredo is not a super healthy recipe, but it's good. You're gonna let that stick of butter melt and then you're gonna add in about 1.5 cups of heavy cream. Okay, so again, not super healthy, but delicious. So we just have it every once in a while. Let that mix together, come together. It takes like 2 minutes for those two things to combine. Then you can start adding in your spices. So you need about 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, pop that in there, mix it around. You're gonna need some Italian seasoning and some salt and pepper. I go with about a 1/2 teaspoon of each one of these. You can go less on the pepper if you want it to be a little more mild. Once all of that combines, you're gonna slowly start to add in some Parmesan cheese. So overall, it's about 2 cups of Parmesan cheese, but you don't wanna dump all of it in to begin with because it doesn't melt quite as well. So you wanna do maybe like 1/4 to 1/2 cup, let that melt, and then just gradually add in and keep stirring so that it will combine. If you buy pre-shredded Parmesan, it might take a little bit longer to combine than it will if you shred your own, but either way is totally fine. Once it's done, once that Parmesan cheese is melted in, you're good to go. I mean, it will thicken up. Once you take it right out of the pot, it's not very thick, but you can toss it with pasta sauce right away. I actually made this one yesterday. Okay, so I made it and then I just covered this container after I poured it in and I popped this into the refrigerator because it's completely fine. It's gonna solidify in the refrigerator overnight, but all you have to do is reheat it and you're gonna get back to an Alfredo consistency. Very easy to make, guys, so simple. But again, if you don't wanna home make it, that's totally fine. If you don't want to make it from scratch, then you're just going to pour in a jar of your favorite Alfredo sauce. This is about 2 cups, which is usually about what the jars are. So we're gonna pour that whole thing in. I'm not gonna waste any of it because it is just so good. I have 1/4 cup of milk. We're gonna add in that milk. Now, the milk might not be quite as necessary if you are using a homemade version. If you're using a jar version, absolutely use milk to kind of thin it out a little bit. Also, I wanna tell you, you can add whatever kind of vegetables you like to this as well. So we don't prefer vegetables mixed into a casserole, but I know a lot of people do. Add in your peas if you want to, add in your green beans if you want to, whatever you like, add it in. Ours is gonna be a very basic, we just prefer to have like a side salad or something like that with it, rather than have the vegetables mixed in. Although, mixing the vegetables in does add beautiful color. We've got about 1 pound of chicken. I just cubed this and sauteed it over on the stovetop. Really simple. I added our favorite spices, So onion powder, garlic powder, our favorite Kevin's seasoning, the Kevin's all-purpose seasoning, and then some paprika, and I just sauteed it over in a pan. Very, very simple, okay? Keep it as simple as you want. You could grill it. If you're already grilling this week, go ahead and grill up 2 extra chicken breasts, and then you can just chop them up into bite-sized pieces. You could bake it in the oven. If you wanna make this so incredibly simple, grab yourself a rotisserie chicken and just shred off the pieces, because that would be completely fine too. So about a pound of this chicken, cooked chicken. Y'all know I love to give you extra things that you can do to make this even easier. I actually have fresh basil in my garden, but right now it's raining. And the garden is a decent walk. I'm hoping to actually add herbs to my deck coming up here soon so that I don't have to go all the way out for herbs that we use on a daily basis. That seems like it's a mile walk. It's really not that far, but it's raining, so I'm not gonna go out and get that. So we're actually going to be using some dried basil, which is not really my preference, but it'll be fine. We need about a half teaspoon. I'm not measuring, it's just we're sprinkling in. Now, another thing that I'm gonna add, and a lot of this is really for color. I mean, we love roasted red peppers anyway. We're gonna add some of these in there. And originally I was just gonna toss them in, but I actually think I am gonna chop them because they're pretty decently long strips of roasted red pepper. So let's just chop them up just a little bit. So 1/4 to 1/3 cup, up to a 1/2 cup, just however much you like. If you like a lot, then add a lot. Just rough chop, making sure that they're not, huge strips so that when you go to take a bite, you have a long piece of red pepper. All right, let's mix that together. It smells really delicious. I know it's gonna be good. My husband, okay, y'all, I know he sounds really picky, but he's not. He just doesn't like onions and peas. Literally the 2 things he will not eat are onions and peas. But peas would actually be really beautiful in this and add that element of green. Also fresh basil would be really beautiful in this. Maybe we'll add it to the top. If it stops raining, I can cut up a little bit and add it in there. If I have an 8x8 baking dish or a 2-quart baking dish, you could probably put this in a 9x13, but it's gonna be kind of thin. So I'm just gonna keep it into this like half size. Let's add in the casserole mix here. What I'm counting on is that this is gonna have a lot of flavor. I really hope that is going to be the case. Now, this is going to bake on 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. We will take it out at the 30-minute mark because we do have a little topping that's gonna go on it, but at first, it's gonna be covered 30 minutes at 350 degrees. Mine is actually gonna go into the fridge for after we come back from going swimming with friends, and then we'll pop this in the oven. This has been in for 30 minutes. We've got a couple things that we need to do. I have a cup of breadcrumbs right here and a tablespoon of melted butter. We're gonna pour that in and just mix it together. We need to mix the casserole a bit before we add the topping. This is really tasty. I know it's not ready yet, but it's good. We're gonna take that topping and just sprinkle all over. You could probably add more butter, but my thought was there's already a lot of butter in the Alfredo, so it's going to soak up some of that rises to the top anyway, so that's why I only used a little under a tablespoon. Now this can go back in uncovered for about 20 more minutes. I already know that this is good because I did try a little bite before we put the topping on, but I think that topping is just gonna, take it over the top, add that extra little crunch to it. So we'll give it a try with the topping as well. Very good with that topping. It's a very rich casserole. So even though there's no cream of soup in here, because of that Alfredo, it feels like a full meal. Now, like I told you, my husband doesn't like peas. We could definitely add broccoli. He probably wouldn't like that either, though.
It's called for peas?
It's called for peas.
What's the red stuff?
Roasted red pepper. Broccoli would be a good option in here. I also think you could add green beans too if you cut them up a little bit, but it's very good. The flavors are very, very, very good. I mean, you guys know what chicken Alfredo tastes like, but you're just putting it into a casserole with rice instead of pasta, and it is hearty. This is a hearty, hearty meal.
Is it anything like Mom's chicken stretcher?
No. I mean, maybe like the textures, but not the, that's something I need to make for you guys. Yeah. His mom called it chicken stretcher because it goes a long way, it stretches a long way, and that's what the boys grew up eating that all the time. So maybe I'll make that at some point. Today we are making another casserole. I'm actually gonna make the full casserole this time. It is a 9x13 dish. I'm basing this off of a couple things that I've seen, but I'm kind of changing things up to make this my own recipe. This one is all my favorite flavors. You guys know I've talked about this here before that I love Mediterranean style dishes. Take me to the Mediterranean and I could just live there happily forever because I love those flavors. This is a Greek chicken orzo bake and it just sounds delicious. I'm gonna go ahead and preheat our oven to 350 degrees. We've got some orzo over cooking on the stove, and as soon as that's done, we're going to drain it to make sure that it is ready to put in the casserole. And I made a full pound or 16 ounces of orzo. I'm going to actually just mix here in the casserole dish because I'm trying to make it easy on myself, less dishes. The dishwasher actually just finished running, so I need to unload it anyway. And I'd like to unload it and not add an entire dishwasher back in. Okay, so I'm going to spray it. We've got our drained orzo. I'm gonna just add all of that right in there. Also, if you can hear my son in the background, he is singing the Peaches song very, very, very loudly. We are gonna add 2 cans of diced tomatoes. I have these cans of diced tomatoes here. We do want to drain them though. Okay, so we're just adding in the tomatoes. So I'll just pop these open, and conveniently in the sink, I still have my mesh strainer. So we're just gonna drain them just like that. I have some feta cheese here. Now I've already divided out 12 ounces of the feta, but we're only gonna put about 6 ounces in here right now. So I'm just going with right around half into this orzo mixture, maybe a little more than that. The recipes that I saw did not call for Kalamata olives, and I feel like, okay, if you're not an olive fan, obviously don't add the Kalamata olives. If you're making a Greek casserole, this is gonna take it over the top. So we're gonna be adding in some Kalamata olives. These are halved, and you could, you know, I wonder if I should chop these just a little bit. So I'm gonna end up adding, I don't know, maybe like a 1/4 cup or so of chopped Kalamata olives. Like I said, if you're not an olive fan, just skip out on this. So I'm just doing a very rough chop. I'm not worried about them being a certain size. And then we'll add these in there. We have 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I'm gonna add that in. Add about a teaspoon of oregano. When you're making Greek flavors, Mediterranean flavors, you have to have oregano. Oregano, lemon juice, and olive oil, those are gonna be your staples. Let's just mix all of this together. You could obviously mix this in a bowl and then add it in here if that's something you wanna do. Totally fine. Like I said, I'm just trying to make less dishes for myself. I mean, let's be real. I would probably just eat this right here. Doesn't need to be baked or anything. I mean, the orzo is already cooked. The tomatoes are canned. I eat olives straight out of the jar, and the feta cheese, this already to me, you guys know I love these flavors. Okay, so we can set this to the side for now and move on to the next step. I do kind of have a clump of tomatoes here. All right, set this to the side. We'll move on to the next step. We have a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'm gonna cut it in, I'm going to dice it into pieces so that this will go with the casserole. This would be great with chicken thighs. This would be great with some sort of sausage. I think it would be delicious with shrimp. Now, this recipe is gonna end up baking in the oven for an hour. I definitely would not put the shrimp in now if that's a recipe that if you're gonna try it with shrimp. I would add it much later, like right at the very end, because shrimp does not need that much time to cook. It's gonna get rubbery and overcooked and just nasty. So you definitely don't wanna do that. But don't feel like chicken is your only option for this, because I really don't think it is. I'm dicing it into kind of like bite-sized pieces. Oven's ready, which is perfect because we are about ready for this to go in there. But you know what I just realized? I didn't add the grain in here. So the chicken is now chopped and ready to go. We are adding arugula. If you don't like arugula, you should absolutely feel free to use spinach, or if you don't like spinach either, just skip that step. But here's why I really like arugula, and it has a very distinct flavor. So if you're not a fan of the taste of arugula, you know, just change it up. But arugula has almost like a lemony flavor, which works and pairs really nicely with the other ingredients that are in this recipe. We only need a couple ounces. I mean, you're just kind of adding it in there. I'm not measuring that, but that's probably 2 cups. Combine that in there as best as we can. You can also chop it up a little more if you want to. And if you're using spinach, you can take the stems off if you want to. I mean, look how pretty this looks. These are just like the summer colors. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so delicious. Okay, so I think we're decently mixed here. Beautiful. Now we just need to take our chicken broth, or we're using bone broth. You guys know we use that in place of chicken broth. This is a ½ cup of broth. We're just gonna take this and pour it over the top. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's all gonna kind of spread out throughout the bottom of this dish anyway. Let's make up the chicken seasoning. I have about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Pour that in. A ½ teaspoon of garlic powder. A ½ teaspoon of onion powder. A ½ teaspoon of oregano. A ½ teaspoon of parsley. ½ teaspoon of thyme, and you cannot do these flavors without adding in a ½ teaspoon of dill. Now you can buy a Greek seasoning. There are Greek seasonings that are already made up, but I always have all of these things on hand, so it's so easy to just make one up with all of the spices that I already have. So we're just going to try and evenly coat these, tossing it in that mixture. While I'm doing this, I'm very curious, what is your favorite type of food, style of food, cuisine? What is your favorite kind of thing? Are you like a burgers and hot dog type of person? Do you love Mediterranean flavors like I do? Are you an Italian lover? Like what's your thing? What is your favorite type of food? One style of food, if it's done right, I will absolutely love Indian food. Love it. I love all the spices and all the flavors. Let's add in some oil. We're gonna use in between 2 and 3 tablespoons, but we really just wanna make sure that the chicken is nicely coated in all of those flavors and in the oil. Let's add in the chicken. We're not gonna stir this, we're just gonna place it all over the top. So I'm kind of trying to separate the pieces a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to, you know, go through and separate each and every one, but I don't want big clumps of chicken. I wanna make sure that it cooks nicely and evenly. We're gonna cover this and bake it for 1 hour on 350. Then we've got another step where we're gonna finish off the feta cheese. All right, don't turn your oven off because you got about 5 more minutes in there. Okay, we're gonna take the other 6 ounces of the feta cheese and just go all over the top, as much or as little as you want. Then we're gonna put this back in the oven for about 5 minutes and let it bake. I want the cheese to get a little bit of color on it. I feel like it looks so pretty when you get just a little bit of color. So we'll put that back in there, just let it go. We don't have to recover it. It really is gonna take about 5 minutes and then this is gonna be ready to eat. All right, we've got a little bit on a tiny little plate here. I just wanna try it for you guys to let you know how it is. That has excellent flavor. Really, really tasty. Do not skip the Kalamata olives. If you like Kalamata olives, they have to go in here. It adds another element of saltiness, which is fantastic. The arugula is perfect in my opinion because of that lemony flavor that it adds. You could also add some lemon zest to this, and that would be really, really good. The chicken is not dried out, which is really surprising to me, but I also think, you guys know, it would be absolutely delicious with chicken thighs. So, so good. Our verse today comes from Hebrews 10:24 and 25. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love good works, not neglecting to meet together, as in the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you need more casserole inspiration, I have a lot more of that here on my channel. In addition to casserole inspiration, I've also got tons of other videos that you do not want to miss. I do suggest that you check out the video that I have above right here, and that's going to offer you a lot more kitchen inspiration. I hope that you're having a great week. Bye.